Assalamu alaikum, I am Amir. I want you to think about a very specific moment. You open your banking app, you look at your balance, and instead of feeling that familiar knot in your chest, instead of doing the mental arithmetic of what can I delay, what can I skip, what do I absolutely have to pay, you just feel okay, calm, like you can breathe. Most people think that moment requires a lot of money. They have heard the number $1 million thrown around. They have heard that 6 figures is the magic threshold. And so they keep waiting, keep grinding, keep telling themselves that real peace is somewhere far down the road, years from now after some massive financial breakthrough. But here is what I have come to believe after years of watching people transform their financial lives. The real turning point is much closer than that, and almost nobody talks about it because it is not a dramatic number. It does not make for a flashy headline. The number is $20,000, not $1 million, not even $100,000, $20,000 saved. And today I want to explain exactly why this number changes everything, not just mathematically, but psychologically, at the level of how your brain actually functions, how you see work, how you make decisions, how you experience your entire relationship with money. If this kind of content speaks to you, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on the notification bell. And in the comments write the words, nafs under control. The nafs is the self, the desires, the impulses. Building $20,000 requires mastering your nafs before you master your bank account. Write it below. It is a declaration as much as a comment. Now let us get into this properly. When you are living with no financial cushion, your brain enters a specific mode. Psychologists call it scarcity mindset. I would describe it differently. Financial survival mode. And when you are in survival mode, your thinking narrows. Every decision gets filtered through fear. Every opportunity gets filtered through the question of what could go wrong. You take the first job offer that appears because you cannot afford to wait for something better. You stay in situations that drain you because leaving feels too risky. You say yes to things you do not want to do because you need the money. And this is not weakness. This is not a personal failure. This is what happens to any human being when they are operating without a buffer between themselves and disaster. The mind cannot plan for the future when it is consumed with surviving the present. The Quran speaks to this directly. Allah tells us that the human being was created anxious. When misfortune touches him, he is filled with panic. What breaks the cycle of anxiety in our deen is sabr, discipline and consistency. And building $20,000 is one of the most practical expressions of that sabr that exists in the financial world today. Research confirms what the Quran describes. Studies on financial psychology show that having even a modest emergency fund, as small as $2,000, increases a person's reported financial well-being by over 20%. $2,000. Not 20,000 yet, just 2,000 changes the psychological experience of money significantly, because it moves you from pure panic to something that feels even slightly like ground beneath your feet. And when you push that further, when you build 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most people in Western countries land somewhere around $20,000, you unlock a completely different mode of thinking. Your brain stops asking, how do I survive until next month, and starts asking, how do I grow this? That shift is not small. That shift is everything. Now let us look at the mathematics. because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Getting to your first 20,000 will take genuine effort, perhaps a year and a half of discipline, of choosing the future over the present, of saying no to things you wanted today because you were building something for tomorrow. That is real, that is hard, and that is why most people never get there. Not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack the consistent discipline to push through the difficulty of building that first foundation. But here is where the Quran's promise of barakah begins to show itself mathematically. Your second 20,000 does not take the same effort as the first, it takes slightly less. Because now you have the first 20,000 working alongside you, generating its own returns, compounding quietly in the background. You are doing the same amount, the same monthly contribution, the same level of effort, but the timeline shrinks, and by the time you're working toward your third and fourth milestone, the acceleration is undeniable. Your money is working for you while you sleep, while you eat, while you raise your children, while you make dua. This is what the Prophet, peace be upon him, referred to when he spoke about the value of planting. Even if you knew the day of judgment was tomorrow, he said, plant the seed. Because action and investment have their own barakah regardless of the time frame. But I want to step back from the mathematics for a moment, because there is something more important I need to say. When you reach $20,000 in savings, you will have achieved something that goes far beyond the number in your account. You will have proved something to yourself. And this is the part that changes your life more than any investment return ever could. Think about what it actually required to get there. You tracked your spending, you delayed gratification, you said no repeatedly to things you wanted immediately because you had committed to something larger. You proved that you are someone who can control their nafs, someone who is not owned by their impulses, someone who chooses long-term over short-term consistently, even when it is uncomfortable. In Islamic terms, you have practiced what our tradition calls zuhdi, not poverty as a virtue, but detachment from the dunya in its proper sense. The world is not your master. You use it, you navigate it, you build in it, but it does not control you. That identity shift, that quiet internal knowledge that you are in command of your money rather than subject to it, that is worth more than the 20,000 itself. Here is something else that changes when you cross this threshold. The way you see your work. When you have no financial cushion, your employer has enormous power over you. Not because they are necessarily cruel people, but because your survival depends on your next paycheck, and both of you know it. You do not ask for the raise you deserve because you are afraid of the consequence. You absorb demands you know are unreasonable because you feel you have no choice. But $20,000 changes the negotiation entirely. Now you have what I think of as walking away money, the ability to leave a situation that does not serve you without immediate catastrophe. You can survive for months while you find something better. And that knowledge, just the knowledge that it is possible, changes your entire posture. You become more confident, more grounded, more willing to speak up. And here is the beautiful irony. Most of the time, you never need to use it. Just having it makes you show up differently. And when you show up differently, people respond differently to you. Better opportunities, better treatment, better outcomes. It is a quiet power that compounds as surely as your investment returns do. This is precisely what the concept of risk teaches us. provision comes through channels. The Muslim who positions themselves well, who negotiates from strength rather than desperation, is placing themselves in the path of better channels. Tawakkul is trusting Allah after you have done the work of preparation, not instead of it. Now I need to address something directly because I see this pattern constantly and it costs people everything. They reach 20,000, they feel that shift. They feel the relief and the confidence and the pride of having built something real. And then they spend it. A new car because they feel they deserve it after all that discipline. A holiday, an upgrade, and suddenly they are back at zero. Back in survival mode. Back where they started, except now with the demoralizing knowledge that they reached the summit and voluntarily walked back down. Do not do this. That 20,000 is not a reward. It is not a finish line. It is a foundation. It is the first stone of a building that if you leave it in place and keep building on top of it, will shelter your family and the families of your children. Take it apart now and you are not just spending $20,000. You are destroying the momentum, the compounding, the psychological foundation and the identity you worked so hard to build. The Quran is clear that wealth given to us is an amanah, a trust. We are not its owners, we are its stewards, and a steward who destroys what was entrusted to them has failed in something far more serious than a financial calculation. Let us talk about the car specifically because it is perhaps the most common wealth-destroying decision that educated, hard-working, intelligent people make. The average person spends an enormous portion of their income across their lifetime on a vehicle. Payments, insurance, depreciation, fuel, maintenance. That money, invested patiently over the same period, would represent financial independence for most families. And yet people trade that future for something that loses a significant portion of its value the moment they drive it away. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that richness is not about having a great amount of property. Real richness is the richness of the soul. The person driving the modest, reliable car while their investment grow quietly is often the one sleeping peacefully at night. The one in the new car with the expensive payment is performing wealth rather than building it. And our deen has always been concerned with substance over performance. Once you have $20,000 saved, your entire filter for major purchases changes. You stop asking, can I afford the monthly payment, and start asking, what is this really costing me in terms of my future? Not in an obsessive way, but in a grounded, intentional way that honors the amana of what you have been given. And you will often find, as that clarity develops, that many things you thought you wanted, you do not actually want. They looked appealing when money was scarce, because scarcity makes the unattainable feel more desirable. But when you have a foundation and a plan, you see things differently. You know what you are building toward, and that vision makes the trade-offs feel less like sacrifice and more like strategy. This is wealth building as an act of worship, not because money is sacred, but because intentionality is. The Muslim who understands money, who controls it rather than being controlled by it, who is not enslaved by it, is best positioned to do good in this world, to give generously, to support their family, to build institutions, to leave something behind that benefits the ummah long after they are gone. $20,000 is not wealth, but it is the door to a completely different relationship with wealth. It is the moment the psychological burden of pure survival begins to lift. It is the moment your brain has space to think about growth rather than just protection. It is the moment the mathematics of compounding begin to work meaningfully in your favor, and it is the proof to yourself that you are someone who honors their commitments even when it is difficult. That proof is irreplaceable. Ya Allah, make it easy for every person watching this to build this foundation. Put barakah in their income, in their savings, and in the seeds they plant for their children. Protect them from the anxiety of scarcity and grant them the clarity of mind that comes with genuine financial grounding. Make their wealth a tool for good in this world and not a source of distraction from what truly matters, and accept their effort as an act of worship, because truly, when we build with the right intention, even the discipline of saving becomes a form of ibadah. Ameen. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The upper hand is better than the lower hand. The hand that gives is better than the hand that receives. Build your 20,000, then build beyond it, because the generous hand requires a full one." I will see you in the next video.